It was 3:42 p.m. on a Thursday when the SUV gave out. Not in flames, not in a cinematic explosion, just a flicker of the dash lights, a quiet rattle, and then silence. The air conditioning was the first to go, then the engine, then Chloe Matthews' patience. She pulled the vehicle to the side of the road just as the Georgia sun slipped in through the now useless vents like it had been waiting. There wasn't a cloud in the sky, only heat, stillness, and the faint rustle of cicadas in the trees. Chloe exhaled sharply, her grip on the steering wheel tightening before she reached for her sunglasses and checked her phone. No signal, no assistant, no backup vehicle. A faded road sign, nearly hidden by vines, read, "Townsend Auto Care, 1 mile ahead." With a sigh, Chloe opened the car door. Her designer heels met soft gravel with a crunch, and her silk blouse stuck to her back almost immediately. She looked up the road. 1 mile. In this heat. Fantastic. She walked. It wasn't graceful. Her steps sank in patches of soft dust. Her blouse clung tighter with every minute, and her hair, usually sleek and controlled, began to curl rebelliously at the ends. By the time the low square building of Townsend Auto Care came into view, Chloe looked less like a CEO and more like someone who had just escaped a very unair-conditioned meeting in the middle of nowhere. The garage didn't look like much. The open sign in the window blinked half-heartedly. The siding was peeling. A rusty fan buzzed behind a mesh screen door. Somewhere inside, old jazz was playing, soft, wobbly, like the radio couldn't quite decide which station to land on. Inside, it smelled of oil, old rubber, and something faintly fried. At the back of the room, a man stood bent over the open hood of a Chevy pickup. He didn't look up, just wiped his brow with the back of his arm and kept going. Off to the side, sitting on a tall stool, was a young girl, maybe 10. Her dark curls were pulled into a high puff, and she wore pink Converse that swung rhythmically as she kicked the air. A sketchpad was open on her lap. A red pencil rested between her teeth. She saw Chloe first. "Daddy," she said softly, "someone's here." The man straightened slowly. He was tall, broad, and moved with the kind of calm that came from doing something well for a long time. His hands were stained with grease, his shirt had seen better days, and there were deep lines across his face, earned not by age, but by labor. "You need help?" he asked, voice low and steady. Chloe straightened too, instinctively putting on her executive face. "Yeah. Engine overheated about a mile up. No signal, no clue why. Can you take a look?" He nodded once. "Zia, grab the kit." The girl, Zia, was already moving, hopping down from her stool with practiced ease. 5 minutes later, he was under the hood of Chloe's SUV. His sleeves were rolled up, eyes scanning everything with the kind of focus she'd seen in surgeons or high-stakes consultants. Chloe leaned against the passenger door, arms crossed. "I've got a team for this kind of thing," she muttered, mostly to herself. "I shouldn't even be here." He didn't reply, just kept working. She glanced at the little girl now sitting cross-legged on the gravel, sketching something in her book. "You always work like this? No assistant, no shop manager?" "Not alone," the man said without looking up. "She's here." Chloe blinked. She should be at summer camp or something. The man stood up, wiping his hands. "Camp costs money. I run a shop. She comes with me." There was no apology in his tone, just truth. Chloe looked him over for a second longer than necessary. He didn't look tired, but he looked like someone who didn't have time to be tired. She recognized that look. "So," she said, sarcasm sliding in like a reflex, "if you can fix this engine, I'll marry you." Zia giggled without looking up. The man, Darnell, didn't blink. "Challenge accepted," he said simply. Chloe blinked. For the first time in a while, she didn't have a comeback. He popped the hood wider and leaned in again, working with quiet, precise movements. The silence between them felt less awkward than expected, almost intentional. Chloe looked around the garage. There was no espresso machine, no front desk, just 3 stools, a sagging couch with a moving blanket over it, and a calendar from 2018 hanging by a single thumbtack. Zia sat on the couch now, flipping to a fresh page. She glanced up briefly. "You drawing me?" Chloe asked. Zia didn't look up. "Kind of." "Make me look like a superhero, will you?" "I don't know what kind yet," Zia said, matter of fact. That earned a soft chuckle from under the hood. Chloe crossed her arms, amused. "What kind do I look like?" Zia finally looked up, squinting. "One that's strong but probably needs a nap." Darnell laughed harder this time. A real laugh, deep from the chest. Chloe smirked. "You raising a comedian back there?" "She's observant," he said. "Gets that from her mom." There was something soft in his voice when he said it, like the name still held weight. Chloe didn't press. Instead, she sat on one of the stools and brushed off a thin layer of dust with the side of a business card. "So, how bad is it?" "Cooling fan relays fried," he said. "Might be more, but that's the main issue. I've got one in the back. Hour and a half, maybe 2. Chloe checked her watch. "I've got a call at 6. He glanced at the sun. "You'll make it. Barely, assuming I don't mess it up." She smirked. "Comforting." He disappeared into the back. Chloe glanced at Zia, who was now sketching the SUV like it was a cartoon dog. "You come here every day?" "Yep." "Don't you get bored?" "Sometimes," Zia said. "But Dad says bored kids get creative." Chloe raised an eyebrow. "That work on you?" Zia held up the drawing. "What do you think?" It was surprisingly good. Playful lines, sure, but with details Chloe hadn't realized were visible, like the exact way her shoulders slumped. Chloe gave a small, surprised smile. "You've got talent." "I know." The voice came from behind the hood. Darnell was back, tools in hand. "We'll need about an hour and a half," he said. "You can walk down to the diner. Clean, decent coffee." Chloe looked around at the silence, the warm air, the quiet thrum of jazz. "I'll stay," she said, and she wasn't sure why. The ceiling fan creaked overhead, its lazy rhythm doing little to push the heavy summer air. Chloe sat barefoot on the faded couch, blouse clinging to her back, watching dust swirl in a sunbeam that cut through the garage window. Her heels rested beside her, forgotten, like relics of a version of herself that didn't quite belong here. Zia was back on her stool, her red pencil moving in quick, practiced strokes. The sketch pad sat steady in her lap, anchored by fingers smudged with graphite. "You always bring her here?" Chloe asked, not really knowing why the question mattered. Darnell, crouched under the hood of her SUV again, didn't look up. "Ain't got many options." Chloe glanced over at Zia. "You ever think about summer camp?" The girl shrugged without looking up. "Camp costs money, and I'd rather be here." Chloe raised an eyebrow. "Really?" Zia looked up just long enough to meet her gaze. "He doesn't rush things. I like watching him work." That landed harder than Chloe expected. She wasn't sure why. Maybe it was the way the girl said it, like it was obvious, like it meant something. "I used to draw," Chloe said, not even realizing she was speaking aloud. Zia's pencil paused. "What happened?" Chloe let out a short laugh. "Grew up." Zia tilted her head. "That doesn't mean you have to stop." Chloe opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. She wasn't used to this, being seen without being sized up, being spoken to like a person, not a position. Darnell's socket wrench clicked softly in the background. Zia flipped to a new page and began sketching again. Her tongue peeked from the corner of her mouth in concentration. Chloe watched her hands, quick and sure. "You draw a lot?" "Every day," Zia said. "It helps." "Helps what?" "Just helps," the girl said simply, as if that answer was enough. Chloe nodded slowly, looking down at her phone. Still no bars, no emails, no buzzing. The silence was both strange and, if she let herself admit it, welcome. "You always work this quietly?" she asked Darnell. He grunted softly, then said, "Noise doesn't make things faster." Chloe smirked. "But it makes them feel faster." "Doesn't make them better," he replied, finally standing up and wiping his hands on a worn rag. He walked over to the workbench and rummaged through a small parts box, pulling out a fan relay and a couple of tools. Zia watched him, then turned her sketch pad toward Chloe. It was a loose drawing, a quick study, but Chloe recognized herself immediately. The lines weren't flattering in a traditional sense, but they were honest. Her hair slightly frizzed, her jaw tight, shoulders slouched just enough to betray her exhaustion. And her eyes, Zia had drawn them heavy, not sad exactly, but burdened. Chloe stared. "You captured that fast." Zia shrugged. "You were sitting still." "Don't usually do that, huh?" Chloe smirked. "Not really," Darnell returned, crouching again under the hood. The tools clinked softly as he worked. "You got any kids?" Zia asked suddenly, flipping to a new page. The question hit like a quiet slap. Chloe blinked. "No." "Why not?" "That's complicated." Zia didn't push, just kept drawing. Chloe exhaled through her nose. "Let's just say my job didn't leave a lot of room." "For what?" Zia asked. "For that. For anything not scheduled down to the last minute." Zia nodded, as if she understood, even if she didn't. "My dad says time is the most expensive thing," she added. Chloe glanced at Darnell, who hadn't interrupted but was clearly listening. "He's not wrong," Chloe said softly. Zia leaned over to show her newest sketch. It was the SUV again, but this time it had eyelashes and a big grin. "She looks fixed already," Chloe said with a chuckle. "She just needed someone to slow down," Zia replied. Chloe stared at the little girl. "Do you always talk like this?" Zia shrugged. "Dad says being direct saves time." Chloe nodded slowly, her smile fading into something more thoughtful. "I used to be like you," she said after a beat. "How?" "Curious. Loud sometimes. Happy. I used to draw everywhere, had sketchbooks in every bag." "What happened?" "People started telling me it wasn't practical, that it wouldn't get me anywhere." Zia paused. "Did it?" "Get me somewhere?" Chloe asked. "Yeah, I guess. I run a logistics firm. Big one. Trucks, containers, the whole deal." Zia considered this. "Like UPS?" Chloe smiled. "Kind of, but less brown." Zia giggled. "You like it?" "I don't know anymore." The garage fell quiet again, the fan ticking overhead, the radio slipping between saxophone and static. Darnell tightened one last bolt, then stood slowly, wiping his hands. "Fan's in," he said. 15 more minutes. Zia hopped off the stool. "I'll get water." She disappeared through the side door, her pink sneakers squeaking slightly on the floor. Chloe stood and stretched, stepping closer to the SUV. "She's sharp," she said. "Too sharp sometimes." "She ever get tired of being here?" Darnell shook his head. "She likes the quiet, and I like knowing where she is." Chloe nodded. "Makes sense." He finally looked at her directly. "Not everyone measures success the same." She met his gaze. "No, they don't." A beat passed, then he added, "I just want her to feel safe. To know someone shows up. Every day, no matter what." Chloe didn't say anything at first. The simplicity of it hit hard. "That's rare," she finally said. "It shouldn't be." The side door creaked open. Zia returned with 2 paper cups. "It's warm," she warned, handing one to Chloe. "Better than nothing," Chloe replied, taking a sip. The 3 of them stood in the stillness of the garage, one fixing, one sketching, one quietly unraveling. Chloe hadn't planned to stay this long. She hadn't planned on any of it. But somehow, sitting here barefoot on a dusty couch with warm water and no signal, it felt more real than the last 5 meetings she'd taken in glass-walled offices. Darnell was tightening bolts with slow, practiced motions, the kind of rhythm you don't learn from a manual. Chloe watched from the side, one foot resting on the bottom rung of a dusty stool, her paper cup of lukewarm water now nearly empty. "You ever get tired of this?" she asked, voice soft enough to disappear under the hum of the radio. Darnell didn't look up. "Of fixing things?" "Of the heat, the tools, the same kind of problems every day." He shrugged. "Every job has its repetition, but this place is mine. That counts for something." Chloe nodded, letting that settle. She glanced toward the open bay doors, where Zia sat cross-legged on the concrete, sketching something in the sunlight. "Did you teach her to draw?" she asked. "Nope," Darnell said, reaching for a different wrench. "Just left pencils where she could find them." Chloe smirked. "Parenting by proximity?" "Sometimes that's the best you can do," he said, wiping sweat from his brow. There was a lull in their words. Not awkward, just quiet. Zia, still sketching, suddenly asked without looking up, "Are you rich?" The question hit Chloe like a pebble thrown into still water, unexpected but direct, and a little too honest. She raised an eyebrow. "Why do you ask?" "You dress like it," Zia said, matter of fact. "And you walked in here like someone who's used to being in charge?" Chloe laughed, short, surprised. "Well, I am in charge. CEO of a logistics firm." "What's logistics?" Zia asked. "We move things. Freight, containers. We help people get what they need, where they need it." Zia considered that. "Like UPS?" "Yeah, kind of." There was a pause before Zia asked again, "You got kids?" Chloe hesitated. "No." "Why not?" She exhaled. "That's complicated." "Oh." Zia didn't press, but her eyes stayed on her paper, pencil moving again. Chloe rubbed her forehead. "Let's just say I was always chasing something bigger. I thought if I ran fast enough, I'd eventually get somewhere." "And did you?" Zia asked. "I don't know," Chloe admitted. Darnell finally stood, wiping his hands again. "People chase a lot of things. Doesn't mean they catch the right ones." Chloe glanced at him. "You ever chase anything?" He leaned against the frame of the SUV. "Sure. Everyone wants more, but not all more is better." Zia looked up. "Then what's better?" "Time," Darnell said simply. "Peace. Being around when your kid gets home." Chloe bit the inside of her cheek, thinking, "That's the kind of rich I'm after," he added. Chloe chuckled softly, but her eyes didn't match the sound. "You might be the first man I've met who means that." He just nodded. No smugness. No performance. Just truth. Outside, a breeze stirred the trees. Inside, the fan kept spinning, slow and steady. "You think success makes people lonely?" Chloe asked suddenly. Darnell didn't hesitate. "Only when they forget what they really wanted in the first place." She let that sink in. Her gaze drifted back to Zia, who was now shading the outline of the SUV with quick, confident strokes. "She ever get tired of being here?" Chloe asked again. "Sometimes," Darnell said. "But I think she sees more in this garage than most people see in a classroom." "You don't trust schools?" "I trust what I see, not what people sell me. Some kids thrive in places like this." "She's lucky," Chloe said. Darnell nodded. "So am I." There was another pause. Chloe looked around again, the cracked vinyl seat of the couch, the tools laid out neatly on the bench, the scent of grease and heat. "I thought I had everything figured out when I pulled in here," she said. He didn't answer, just watched her with a stillness that made her feel seen. "I thought I had all the answers," she continued. "Turns out I was asking the wrong questions." Darnell gave a quiet half-smile. "Engine's running smooth now." Chloe raised an eyebrow. "You sure? Mechanically?" "Yes," he said. "Emotionally? That's above my pay grade." She laughed, an actual unguarded laugh, the kind she hadn't let out in months. From the other end of the garage, Zia stood and stretched. "I'm going to get more water," she said. "Want some?" "Sure," Chloe replied. When the girl disappeared through the side door, Chloe stepped closer to Darnell. "You really don't want more than this?" she asked. He looked around, at the tools, the concrete floor, the sky through the open doors. "I want what lasts," he said. This lasts." She swallowed something hard in her throat. "I admire that." Darnell gave a slow nod, then turned back to his tools. "Don't have to admire it. Just don't forget it." A moment later, Zia came back in, paper cups in hand, one for each of them. "It's still warm," she warned. Chloe smiled. Still better than nothing. They stood like that, 3 people, quiet, still in the glow of late afternoon. And for the first time in what felt like years, Chloe didn't feel rushed, didn't feel watched, didn't feel like she had to be anything but exactly who she was in that moment. Maybe the engine wasn't the only thing that had needed fixing. The next time Chloe pulled up to Townsend Auto Care, the SUV didn't stutter, whine, or overheat. It purred, smooth, efficient, just like her meetings used to be. She stepped out in flats this time, her usual heels forgotten in the back seat. No blazer, no rush, just a brown paper bag in one hand and something like calm in her chest. Zia spotted her through the screen door and let out a quiet, excited, "Dad, she's back!" Darnell looked up from under the hood of an old Jeep. "Car trouble?" "Nope," Chloe said, holding up the bag. "Just lunch." He raised an eyebrow. "For me?" "For both of you," she replied, smiling. "Chicken salad and something that might be lemonade. I didn't taste test." Zia rushed to the door and grabbed the bag before Darnell could say anything. "She's cool," the girl said. "Can she stay?" Darnell gave a slow, skeptical shake of his head, more amused than anything. "Sure, why not?" They sat on upturned crates out back, behind the garage, under a patch of shade cast by the building. The gravel lot stretched wide, quiet, with only the occasional buzz of a distant lawnmower or chirp from the trees. Zia popped open the containers like a pro, already halfway through a forkful before either adult got settled. "You didn't bring a laptop," Darnell noted. "I didn't bring anything," Chloe said, surprised by her own answer. "Good." They ate mostly in silence. Not because they lacked words, but because they didn't need them. After a while, Chloe reached into her purse and pulled out a small, wrapped bundle. She handed it to Zia. "What's this?" the girl asked. "Open it." Inside was a brand new sketchbook, hardcover, heavy pages, the kind artists dream about. Zia flipped through it slowly, eyes wide. "This one smells like money," she said, grinning. Chloe laughed. "That's how you know it's real." Zia held it close to her chest. "Thank you." "You deserve better paper," Chloe said. They fell into conversation about nothing important, the weather, favorite sandwich fillings, whether clouds looked more like animals or old shoes. Darnell leaned back on his crate. "You always this easygoing when you're not on the clock?" Chloe sipped her maybe lemonade. "I used to be, I think." "You forgot?" "No, I think I just got really good at pretending I didn't need it." There was a pause. Darnell looked at her. "You ever stop?" Chloe glanced at the gravel, then back up. "No, not really." He nodded, like he understood something she hadn't said. "I should come here more," Chloe said. Zia perked up. "We got old tires you can sit on. Weird smells. Sometimes free gum." Darnell shot her a look. Chloe burst out laughing. Tempting offer. The light changed as the afternoon wore on, golden, soft, slipping between the trees. Zia disappeared inside to grab more paper towels, leaving Chloe and Darnell alone for a beat. "I want to show you something," Chloe said, pulling a folder from her tote. She slid it across the crate. Darnell wiped his hands before opening it. "What is this?" "An offer. A potential community transport contract. Good money, low overhead, but it's messy, political." He scanned the pages, brow furrowing. "You want me to consult?" "Yeah." Why me? Because you're honest, and because people listen to you. Darnell narrowed his eyes. You're not doing this out of guilt, are you? Chloe shook her head. I'm doing it because I'm tired of building things that don't do anything for real people. He nodded slowly, flipping another page. I'll think about it. No rush, she said. Just don't toss it. Zia returned and dropped a paper towel in Chloe's lap. Dad's picky about his paperwork, she warned. Good, Chloe said. So am I. They sat a while longer, eating in content silence, occasionally pointing out shapes in the clouds or teasing each other gently. Chloe couldn't remember the last time she'd spent an hour like this. No screens, no calendar invites, no pressure. Zia reached into her backpack and pulled out a thin bracelet made of scrap wire and an old washer. It's a friendship bracelet, she declared, handing it to Chloe with pride. Chloe turned it in her hand. This is creative. It's got character, Zia said, like you. Chloe slipped it on like it was Cartier. I'll wear it to my next board meeting. You better, Zia warned. They all laughed, the kind of laugh that sticks to your ribs. And as the sun dipped lower and a soft breeze picked up the scent of oil and lemon and dusty gravel, Chloe realized something. She hadn't fixed anything when she walked into that garage weeks ago. But something in her had started healing anyway. It wasn't the kind of rain that tapped politely at windows. It came in sideways sheets, thick, loud, and unapologetic. Chloe burst through the garage door, soaked to her knees, a brown leather bag held above her head like a shield. Her hair, usually neat and smooth, clung to her face in wild waves. Her blouse, once pressed, now stuck to her arms and back like damp paper. Darnell looked up from a truck lift, barely suppressing a grin. You know umbrellas exist, right? I'm aware, Chloe huffed, dropping her bag onto the counter. I was trying to outrun the guilt of canceling my 4th therapy session in a row. From behind a stack of tires, Zia peeked out, wide-eyed. Want a towel? Yes, Chloe muttered, and maybe a dry sole. The girl vanished into the back with a giggle. Darnell leaned on the workbench, wiping his hands on a cloth. Bad day? Bad week, Chloe replied, sinking onto the sagging couch. She pushed wet strands of hair behind her ears. Every time I think I'm catching my breath, something else grabs me by the throat. Business, investors, my team, my phone. You tried turning it off? She shot him a look. I'm not you, Darnell. No one is, he replied, far too calmly. That's your problem. Zia returned and tossed a towel at Chloe, who caught it midair and began dabbing at her hair and face. I had to let someone go today, she said after a pause. A good person, loyal, just didn't fit the new structure we're building. Darnell didn't flinch. And you feel like trash for it. Exactly. Did you tell her that? No. Why not? Chloe looked down at her damp hands. Because I didn't want her to think I was being soft. Darnell raised his eyebrows. Sometimes soft is honest. She let the silence hang there, absorbing it. Zia climbed onto the couch beside her, tucking her feet beneath her. You ever cry at work? The girl asked. Chloe smiled weakly. More than I'd admit. I saw my dad cry once, Zia said. I didn't say anything, just sat next to him. Chloe turned her head slowly. Is that what you're doing now? Zia shrugged. Maybe. Darnell didn't interrupt. He picked up a socket wrench and returned to the truck like the rhythm of his hands could keep the world spinning. You ever wish life came with a manual? Chloe asked the air. Darnell responded without looking up. Every day. But if it had, I probably would have skipped the hard chapters. Chloe exhaled through her nose. Fair. They didn't talk much after that. Zia sketched quietly on the couch. Chloe sat wrapped in the towel, watching the ceiling tiles. Darnell worked in steady silence. There was no productivity, no plans, no deliverables, and it felt like enough. As the rain softened, Chloe stood and walked slowly to the workbench. She looked down at Darnell, who was tightening a belt on the undercarriage. "You know," she said, "you're the first person in a long time who's told me the truth without trying to sell me something." He didn't look up. "Truth don't cost anything." She smiled faintly. "No, but it's hard to find." He slid out from beneath the truck and sat up, resting his arms on his knees. "What are you afraid of?" he asked, voice low. Chloe blinked. "That's a long list." "Start anywhere." She hesitated. "I'm afraid of losing everything I built, of waking up and realizing none of it matters, that I've spent years climbing a ladder, leaning against the wrong wall." Darnell nodded once. "Then maybe it's time to build something new." "Easier said than done." "Everything worth doing is." She sat down on the stool across from him. "You ever feel like you're in the wrong story?" He wiped his hands, then met her gaze. "No, I just figure I'm in the chapter where it gets tough." Zia appeared beside them, holding her sketchbook. She flipped it open to a new page and turned it around. It was a drawing of Chloe, sitting just like she was now, towel around her shoulders, eyes tired but soft. In the corner, Zia had written in small, looping letters, "Some heroes wear cardigans." Chloe laughed, truly laughed, and took the sketch gently. "You see too much," she told the girl. "Dad says that's a gift." Darnell smiled, not saying anything. Chloe stood and folded the towel. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" Darnell asked. "For not fixing me." He tilted his head. "Wasn't my job." "I know. That's why it worked." The rain had stopped by the time she stepped back outside. The air smelled of wet pavement and honeysuckle. Chloe looked up at the sky and, for once, didn't check her phone. She didn't need to be anywhere but here. The air had changed. It wasn't cooler, not exactly, but the heat didn't feel so heavy anymore. It was late August, and the sun had lost its sharpness. The light now stretched a little softer across the gravel lot, the cicadas less frantic in their rhythm. Chloe pulled into the same spot she had the first time. The SUV, freshly detailed, ran smoothly. She didn't check the dashboard. She didn't check her phone. She just parked, grabbed the small white box wrapped in plain twine, and stepped out in jeans and a t-shirt. No heels, no meetings, no agenda. Zia was waiting, perched on the same old milk crate by the bay door, chewing the cap of a red marker. "You're late," she announced. "I didn't realize I was expected." Zia shrugged. "You're basically part-time now." Chloe laughed. "Fair." Inside, Darnell was adjusting a belt on a rust-red truck. He looked up briefly, gave a quick nod, then returned to the engine. Chloe stepped up to the counter and placed the box down. "What's that?" Darnell asked, wiping his hands. "Open it." He untied the twine slowly, lifting the lid. Inside was a small, dark wood plaque. Simple, clean lines. The metal plate engraved, "Townsend Auto Care. Sometimes the best work happens off the books." He stared at it for a long second, then looked at her. Not with surprise, not even with emotion. Just a kind of stillness. "I had it made last week," Chloe said. "Didn't know if I'd actually bring it." Zia leaned over the counter to peek. "That's fancy. Are we famous now?" Chloe smiled. "You've always been important. Now you're just official." Darnell ran his finger along the edge of the plaque. "It's too much." "No, it's not," she said quietly. They sat outside for a while with iced tea Zia had made. Way too much sugar. But it didn't matter. The three of them sat on crates, sipping from paper cups, watching a car or two pass by on the distant road. Nothing urgent, nothing big, just the kind of quiet that fills you up instead of draining you. Chloe finally spoke. "You remember when we met?" Darnell didn't even look at her. "You said you'd marry me if I fixed your engine." Zia's eyes widened. "Wait, what?" "It was a joke," Chloe said quickly. "No, it wasn't," Darnell replied, deadpan. She laughed. "You took it seriously." "No," he said. "I just wanted to see what kind of woman throws out an offer like that to a stranger in a hot garage." "And what did you think?" He looked at her now. Exactly what you were. Worn out, guarded, tired of being in charge all the time, but trying not to look like it. Chloe didn't respond. She just looked down at her drink and stirred the ice with her finger. After a beat, he added, "You still look like that sometimes." She sighed. "Yeah, but less than I used to." Later, they moved back inside. Zia was organizing her drawings into a folder, some cartoonish, others shockingly detailed. Chloe noticed one she hadn't seen before. It was the three of them again. This time, the drawing had a sun overhead and two small toolboxes side by side. Chloe knelt beside her. "Can I keep this one?" Zia didn't even look up. "Nope, that one's mine." Chloe smiled. "Fair." The day wore on. Golden light filtered through the bay windows as Chloe stood outside, keys in hand. She looked at the SUV, still perfect, still hers, but she hesitated. "You know," she said, turning toward Darnell, "I thought I had everything figured out when I first pulled in here." He leaned against the wall, arms folded. "And now? Now I know I was asking the wrong questions." He nodded once, then pushed off the wall and stepped closer. Not too close, just enough. "You don't have to run all the time," he said. "Some things get clearer when you're not moving." She swallowed that truth like a warm shot of something strong. "I'll come back," she said. "I know." Zia waved from the bay door, her crooked grin in full display. "Don't forget me when I'm famous." "I won't," Chloe replied. "You're in at least 12 of my memories now." As she drove off, the sun dipping low behind her, Chloe didn't feel relief. She didn't feel escape. She felt peace. Not the kind you find at the beach or in a yoga studio, but the kind you find when someone sees you, really sees you, and doesn't ask you to change. Sometimes the most important repairs aren't made with tools. They're made with time and space. And a kid with a sketchbook who thinks you're more interesting than your job title. This wasn't a love story. It was something stronger. A reminder that friendship and quiet, steady truth can be the thing that saves you when nothing else works. Sometimes the most powerful moments in life don't arrive with fanfare. They slip in quietly, like a worn-out engine finally humming again, or a sketch drawn by a child who sees more than most adults ever do. Chloe Matthews didn't come to Townsend Auto Care looking for peace. She came looking for a mechanic. And yet, in the still rhythm of wrenches and laughter, she found something she didn't know she had lost. Herself. Darnell never tried to change her. He didn't offer 10-point plans or life hacks. He offered consistency. He showed up, every day. With hands stained by labor and a heart grounded in truth, he reminded Chloe, and maybe all of us, that strength doesn't always wear a suit and tie. Sometimes it wears a grease-streaked T-shirt and carries a deep love for the Black community that raised it, sustained it, and continues to carry its legacy forward in quiet brilliance. Zia, with her sketchbook and unfiltered honesty, became more than just a child hanging around the garage. She became the bridge between two worlds, two ways of being, and two people who didn't know how much they needed each other's truth. In her eyes, the Black community wasn't just something to protect. It was something to celebrate, something to learn from, something to root into when everything else felt uncertain. This story isn't about fixing a car. It's about remembering what matters, about pausing long enough to feel your own breath, about sitting on an old couch in a quiet garage and realizing that healing isn't loud. It's steady. It's found in spaces where no one's trying to impress you, where titles don't matter, where people listen without waiting to speak. Maybe that's what the Black community teaches best, that dignity doesn't need decoration, that showing up, loving well, and living honestly is more than enough, that the spaces we overlook, the dusty garages, the quiet porches, the folding chairs under shade trees, often hold more wisdom than any boardroom. So if this story stirred something in you, even just a flicker, hold on to it. Maybe take a moment today to sit still, to breathe without checking the clock, to look someone in the eye and really see them. And if you've got a little time, maybe walk into a place you wouldn't usually go. You might find peace in a worn stool, a warm cup of lemonade, or a small plaque on the wall that says, "Sometimes the best work happens off the books." If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs it. Let it travel, like the best kind of wisdom, quietly, steadily, lovingly. Because sometimes the repair isn't about the engine at all.